Now, as you know, we've been doing Tuesday's tips every single day this month, and we're going to continue as we work our way through the alphabet. And today's letter is O. This is one of my favorite items or features in Legacy, and this is the options feature. Now, option is defined as the act of choosing or choice, and it's the power or freedom to choose. And what I want to remind everyone is that in Legacy, we have plenty of options. So let's click on them. So when you click on the options window, you'll be taken to Customize, Alarm Setting, Set Preferred Startup Family, Compiler Information, or Select a Language. Let's take a look at them from the bottom up. If you click on Select a Language in Legacy, you can see that you get a choice of various languages, and English even comes in 4 flavors: Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom, and the United States. But since I don't speak French, Swedish, Norwegian, or Dutch, I think I'm going to stay with English, and I'll stay with the United States flavor. So I just click OK. Now I go back to options and I take a look at the compiler information. And this is really useful tab if you're going to be printing reports. First of all, the date always comes up as whatever the current date is. You can put your name in here or just your initials. You can put your address, as much or as a little as you want. Your phone numbers, maybe your home as well as your mobile number, email, internet, website, and any comments that you have. And when you do this and you click on OK, these will show up on any of the reports that you print if you click on the option to include compiler information. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. But I just wanted to show you that yet again, if you go to the Help section, it explains to you right there what the compiler information is all about. Now, if that was something that you wanted to make a favorite, all you need to do is add it. And you'll see you'll have a list of favorites that you might go back to on a regular basis. So we can close out the compiler information and go back to our options and take a look at the preferred startup family. Now what I've done is listed the preferred startup family of James Joseph Murphy and Ellen Kiley. You have this family and they'll be the preferred family if you click on an option that says you always want your program to open up with your preferred family. You can set that family. You could also select another family from the list, and this you can kind of play with if you're working on that. But I want you to keep something in mind. While it's great to have a preferred startup family, also remember that you have your bookmarks here, and my bookmarks list some of the main families that I work with. Let me just stretch this out for you. But they list some of my main families that I work with, and I just have those in the bookmark section because I can go to any of them at any time I want. I could also remove one. I could clear all of them. I think bookmarks are very useful, certainly if you want to save your, top 8 families or something like that. All right, we go back into our options, and the next one up is alarm settings. Now, I'm a huge fan of coffee, and I like to remind myself when I need to turn this off sometimes. So I have my alarm set for 11 p.m. It's on. It gives me the ability to slap it a couple of times for the snooze bar, but the message that shows up at 11 p.m. if I'm using my Legacy is that it's time to shut it down and make sure that my coffee maker is set for 6 a.m. You can have any message in there that you want, so I would take advantage of that, and you can either have it clicked on or off. And finally, my favorite part of options is Customize. And I really hope that you'll take advantage of the Customize feature in the Options tab of Legacy. And the reason that I say this, and I've pointed it out a few times in the Legacy Virtual Users Group, is you spend so much time in your Legacy program that you really should have it look and work the way that you want. Don't ever use a software program or an application in just that plain vanilla system. Be willing to color outside the lines, to work outside the box, whatever that is. Play around and make your programs work for you rather than you working for the programs. And I'm going to point out 3 things that should make you a little bit more comfortable about that. When you go to the Customize tab, you'll notice that you can save all of your customizations, and that's great. You can also reset all your customization to the legacy defaults. So if you play around in the customizations and you make a complete and utter mess and you want to go back to the way it was originally, just click on Reset to Defaults. And if you have any questions about how any of these tabs work, there you go, it's Help again. This takes you to the Customize General Settings, and that's because we're on the General page. If you clicked Help when you were in Colors, that's where it would direct you to. And I think this is a really important thing to keep in mind, is that Legacy doesn't just open the Help section, it takes you right to the section that you're working in. So take a look, because you can always have your program startup in any particular view, and mine is set up in Family. You can ask for the starting family to be set, and this is one of those instances where you can pick a starting family as we talked about, and that would be Display Preferred Startup Family. I always look at the last viewed family, the last one I was working at, because that's where I tend to go right back into and pick up. You can work with single clicks or double clicks, and I think this is something really important for people to have the program work the way their other programs work, whether that's in, an internet browser or different programs. I enable the tagging options, some people don't. But there's a number of different choices that you have here. For instance, I am not LDS, so none of this applies to me, and I wouldn't be using it, and I don't want any of it displayed. I have not integrated my Legacy with Family Search at this point, but at the point that you do that, this is the button that you'd click on. Now, I think that the data entry, data format, and data defaults are 3 of the most important ones, and you're going to want to take a look and choose what works for you. If you have long-lived people, you're going to want to come in here and move around these dates. Data format is another one. I use initial caps with prefix and suffix, as well as given names, and I use uppercase for everything. But keep in mind that with the click of a button here, you can change that. You'd click here, and then you'd click Apply, and it would change everything in the program for you. I don't like to display surnames with those slashes, but that is the way some people use it. All of these items are personal preference. Play around, choose what you want, and then of course, go back and unclick it if it's something that doesn't work for you. I think probably the most important thing in data defaults for me is to make sure that the quick entry character ribbon is working, and this is really important to me because I have a lot of Swedish, Norwegian, Slovenian, that type of data entry for names and places, and so I want to quickly be able to use those. And you want to make sure that you change these out depending on what group of records or people you're working with. Dates are important, as well as the prefixes you use for them. And the other thing that I tell you to keep in mind is if you use about or calculated or circa or estimate or anything else to mean different things, be very specific and have that explanation somewhere in your Legacy program so someone else knows what you mean by it. Locations refers to where in Legacy various things are: your family file, your media files, and temporary files. So take a look at that. Sources is another one that's important, and probably the most important thing here is determining whether you're using BASIC or the SourceWriter system. In the View section, you're able to determine what your view is going to look like and how your master location list is going to look and whether or not you're using pictures. So that's definitely something you want to play with, and then while you're doing that, you also want to go back and look and see what your program looks like. I want the full location in there. I don't want there to be any misunderstanding if I've used 6/7/1838, whether it's June 7th or whether it's July 6th. And I think this is really important that we spell this out for ourselves as well as anyone else who's using our program. I like seeing all caps. I want the RIN in there, and I want their birth and death dates. It's an easy thing for me to look and see what types of things I might be looking for, or what might be a deadline where I am not looking for them in the census anymore because they're deceased. This is the type of information I want in my family view: born, baptized, died, buried, and when I updated it. A lot of times I use the cause of death in this display. It just depends on how you're using your family file that day. There are particular things that I use and I want to have down here in this section. You can also make a decision about what you want here and the size of these icons. I do want AKAs. I do want to know the spouse. I want to know the parents, the siblings, if I have notes, if I have events or facts, if I have sources, and if I have to-do items. And this is a really good reminder to me, since it lights up or doesn't light up, to have me take a look at the various features here when I want to work with them. I want my tabs to show, and I want to see who this person is in my family file. I also want this indication here. In this instance, he's my third great grandfather. So I really pack a lot into, and I'll show you even down here, the children's settings. I want them in date order. I want the direct ancestor or descendant to be bolded here so I can just follow through, clicking them. I want stepchildren to show up. I want to know who that parent is, and obviously I can see here that she has had two husbands. I want to know the date of the marriage, the place of the marriage, and if I have notes on that. So I want to be able, whether I'm using bookmarks or clicking through to the person or going back to their parents, I want to be able to work with all of this in the family view. And one of those items is customization. Another item, I do not like the red and blue color, so I use more along the lines of a wine color with a navy blue. I like a more calm background, and I like a particular font that I use. You can make all of those changes in Legacy. This works for me. It might not work for you at all, and that's why it's nice to be able to customize as much as we can in Legacy. So one of the things that you can customize is colors. And this is the one that tends to throw a lot of people, or they're uncomfortable working with it. But the thing to keep in mind is that when you customize colors, you can play around with it. Just take a look at what the instructions are. Your family, descendant, chronology, and index views. And these are going to be the things that you're changing. And you can play around with any of these items here, and it will show up. In the pedigree view, this is the kind of thing that you're playing around with. And you can work with 3D or not and choose that for any of these groups. You can also choose the text colors for highlighting contents, whether it's male or female or unknown. And you can choose your background windows. So go ahead and play with that kind of color combinations and see what works for you. The other thing that I do is I select the colors for my tags, because I can tell you right now that my tag number 5 is probably related to death because I've used the black color, and I know that everyone in tag 1 relates to my paternal side. Everything in the red tag or tag 2 relates to my maternal side. And there's a couple of these colors that, depending on how you choose things, are going to be good reminders to you that you almost don't even need to look at what those tag numbers are. Now, when you've played around with your colors and you like it, you can save it and you'll have a user setting. You can also set up different color and font combinations, and you can have more than one set. You can, once you've saved them, you can load any of those user settings that you want that relate to this. And if you want to learn more about it, there it is again, the help file. And if you absolutely hate everything you've done, you can go back to the default. Now, I've set a number of my fonts in the screen for Comic Sans, and I tend to notice that every once in a while when you do updates, you have to come back here and reset your master report fonts. I don't know why that is, but it's It's something that sometimes happens in Legacy and sometimes doesn't. So if you wanted to change any of these, you would simply go in here and click on that item. And once you do that, it will give you a selection of any of the fonts that you have on your computer. And I simply go in and change it in each one. This is one of those instances when I wish that Legacy wouldn't switch it back. I don't know if it's something I'm doing wrong or something that they're doing, but in any event, when I am using reports, I usually have to go through and switch everything back to the way that I want it with Comic Sans. And then you'll see it shows up there. Now the Launch tab just tells you what your alternate applications are. So if you wanted an alternate web browser, instead of the default browser that you use, or an alternate word processor, text editor, or reader, these are the things that you'd want to go ahead and change, and then you could launch it from there. And in the other section, it gives you message boxes. This is the instance where you could say that it's that your report is produced by Legacy if you want. You can also use custom ID numbers here. This is the one that I've said a lot. I like any of my buttons to be on the top, but interestingly enough, if you wanted to move it to the bottom, you can see that those just quickly moved down there when I did that. And I moved them back to the top. That's just the way that I work. All of my buttons are small or medium to small. The nice thing about this toolbar pictures is that if you set it to be either small or medium and small, it will not increase the icons as you increase your screen size. A lot of times the icons almost look like big Legos because they are set to automatically increase. Now, the other thing that I do is I reset to off each time a report is opened, but you could also retain your settings for printing for private individuals' events or notes. And if people are really concerned about their privacy information, information that they've put in those double brackets, that might be something that you want to click on Retain. So this just gives you a general sense of all of your options that are in Legacy when you customize, and I would really encourage you to play around knowing that you can save, reset to default, or get help. So take a look at my Legacy, how I've had it set up. That works for me, whether it's in the family view, the pedigree view. I know these are all on my maternal side because of the color. I would have tabs that are shown here if I had any of them filled in for this. I've set a different background, but you could set yours to be plain. And you can see the descendant report. You can see what the chronology looks like. And right now it shows up in a particular way for the report, but this is another one of those ones. Here we go, options. Let's click on it while we're here. So this is chronology options, and you can determine what you want to include, whether that's individual events or marriages, whether you want to include parents and the death of the parents. You can set up your formatting with the colors for everything, and what you'll notice here, I'm just going to make this small so that you can see what I'm doing. I do want the children to be in certain colors. I want the marriage to be in a certain color. And I have items that are in my timeline that are also in other colors. So this is something that you can play with. You can also set column widths, how you want the title to go, or your colors, or any of the fonts. You can set up how you want your sources to read, as well as your screen fonts. And on this one, they don't give you any choices. I wish that we had a few more, but we'll go with what we have. So I'm just going to take a quick look at the report here. And I wouldn't print it out like this, and as you'll notice, giving you the example, I took off my personal information, but it could all be listed down along here. I've also seen compiler information that includes something like this is a draft not to be republished without permission of the compiler. You can do a number of things. You could copyright it, anything you wanted to do. But I like to have a timeline going along this left-hand edge. I'm not so good with the math, and so this is helpful to me to know information, that he was married at the age of 23 is going to show up there. The colors really direct me to the kind of information that I'm looking at. I know that there are footnotes in here. As we work through our pages, this tells you that I have information from the family file on this person, and you can, set whatever levels you want. Now, I like to take a look at these reports, and one of the reasons that I like to do that is because if I'm reading through this, or I'm giving someone else, maybe a friend, the chronology report to read through, a lot of times they can really zero in on a whole area that I've missed, or maybe a set of documents that I haven't looked at, something that'll take me a little farther. The other thing is I can many times catch errors that I've made, and whether you look at this on the screen and want to work with it, or whether you want to create a PDF or put it on the clipboard. You have a lot of options, and I'll keep using that word. You have a lot of choices to make with Legacy, and what I'd like to encourage everyone to do is take advantage of those options. One final thing I'll show you right here is that depending on your eyesight or how you want to read something, you can also increase the percentage. You could also make it 2 pages, thumbnail, a number of things. So definitely just click anywhere. You're not going to break Legacy. If there's 2 things I could tell people, it's that you should take advantage of the options, and it's pretty hard to break this software. So go ahead and take advantage of it. Have a little fun, make it colorful, and make it really stand out so that you can work with it the way you want to. Final tip, own your Legacy. Don't let it own you. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow with the letter P.